Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles, and welcome today to the Authentic Health Coaching Show. Now, today on the show, we have an incredible guest for you. His name is Dr. Sinatra. And Dr. Sinatra has been a practicing cardiologist now for over 30 years. And he's an expert in, obviously, heart health and heart disease. And he's done some research, and he's found that cholesterol is not what you think it might be. It's not really a good predictor for heart disease at all. And so he's actually wrote a book on it. It's called The Great Cholesterol Myth: Why Lowering Your Cholesterol Won't Prevent Heart Disease, and a statin-free plan that will. And he talks a lot about statin drugs and why they don't actually reduce your risk for heart disease, because, again, cholesterol is not an important risk factor for heart disease. He talks about other risk factors that are much more important, and today we have a special interview with him where you can learn what really is important for reducing your risk for heart disease and what's really just a myth. So enjoy the show today. Take great notes. This is an incredible doctor, and you're going to learn so much. All right? Well, Dr. Sinatra, thanks so much for being with us today on the Authentic Health Coaching Show. Tell us about your background and what got you interested in medicine in the first place.
What got me interested in medicine? Well, when I was in grammar school, my mother had diabetes. And when I was in junior high, it got really severe. And she was in and out of the hospital. And basically, I had to give her, orange juice and sometimes draw up insulin for her and took care of her. And basically, I guess my high school wrestling coach, what I should do with my life, he said, be a doctor. So that's how it all started. That's how it started. Taking care of my mom and getting the confidence of my coach.
Awesome. Gotcha. Well, I'm sure you've learned a lot on that journey, and then you're coming out with this book now on cholesterol. Tell us about that.
Well, cholesterol has been sort of kicked under the bus for years as the cause of heart disease. And I used to believe that once, when I was chief of cardiology in the 1980s, for example. And I used to lecture for the pharmaceutical companies all the time because I was a choir boy for cholesterol. I believed in the dogma that, if you ate saturated fat, it got turned to cholesterol. And I was a vegetarian for years. And I really bought the story until I realized that the story had major weaknesses. And I started to question it. I did 2,000 angiograms on patients with low cholesterols who had heart disease, and conversely, I had patients with high cholesterol, and I would do an angiogram, and they got normal coronary vessels and normal hearts, and I said, something doesn't work here. So basically, in 1993, when statin drugs were found out to knock CoQ10 down, as well as, cholesterol, I decided to really seriously question it. As to how can something be so good, be taken out of the park, cholesterol from a drug, if it's good for you, needing CoQ10, the most vital nutrient for the heart. So in 1993, I had this epiphany that, wait a minute, maybe cholesterol isn't bad for you after all. And that's why we decided to write the book, because there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of mistruths, misconceptions, a lot of corporate greed, and a lot of fuzzy mathematics as well. To use a Bush term, a lot of these statistics just don't jive. So we decided to write the book and tell the truth about cholesterol. And the truth is, it's not the main cause of heart disease like everybody thinks it is. It's found at the scene of the crime, but it's not the perpetrator.
Gotcha. Well, so are you saying that if someone's 50 pounds overweight and their cholesterol is over 200, they're not at risk for heart disease?
Well, weight they are. Just remember, when you're heavy, you need that weight around your abdomen. That's triglycerides. That's a different animal as opposed to cholesterol. Cholesterol is different. So if you're overweight, I get concerned because that's a major risk factor. Just like high blood pressure is a major risk factor, cigarette smoking. But high cholesterol over 200 doesn't bother me at all. Doesn't even bother me. Now, what I like is the triglycerides, though, because we see a lot of insulin resistance, we see a lot of type 2 diabetes, and people with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, they're inflamed. They have chronic inflammation. And high triglycerides and a low HDL, if you got, let's say, a triglycerides of 300 and an HDL of 30, that means your ratio is 10. I like to see it less than 2. So triglycerides less than 100 and an HDL over 40. And everybody agrees on that. The cholesterol fanatics agree on it. The people who don't believe in a cholesterol theory agree on that. Everybody seems to agree that the triglyceride HDL is sort of one of the best indicators of heart disease.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, what are some other indicators then? I mean, if cholesterol isn't the only one, because I mean, it's certainly like when you watch the media and the news, it's like the only one they really talk about, right? So what are some other markers that you can look at?
Well, the most evil marker and the real villain in heart disease is sugar. Inflammation caused by high blood sugar. You know, high blood sugar ages you. It ages you prematurely. We call it, you know, age glycation. And what happens if blood sugar is high, let's say it's over 100 consistently, it can combine with protein and it causes accelerated aging. And that's what diabetes is basically, is accelerated aging. I mean, type 2 or an insulin-dependent diabetic, their lifespan is usually 15 years less than the general population. So sugar is the villain, not cholesterol. Mm-hmm. And the problem is we're a sugar society. I mean, everybody drinks Coke, everybody puts sugar in their, you know, tea or coffee. You know, I think it's 150 pounds of sugar a year. It's not insane. So, no, sugar is the number one villain when it comes to heart disease because it creates inflammation.
Gotcha. So really the key then, you're saying to heart disease is inflammation and controlling inflammation and reducing inflammation then.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. If you can reduce inflammation, whether it's due to sugar, you know, whether it's due to too much mercury in them, or heavy metals, or insecticides, or pesticides, or cigarette smoke, or electric forces from cordless phone, or cellular phone, or what? I mean, any of these entities, you know, cause inflammation, or DNA breakdown, or you know, another classic example is phthalates, you know, and bisphenol A. You know, they get into the body, you know, doesn't know what to do with it, and whenever we get inflammation, whether it's a cigarette smoke or a heavy metal or like lead or mercury or plastics, it sets the cascade for chronic inflammation, which can lead to heart disease, cancer, you know, any of the neurodegenerative diseases, diabetes, etc. So inflammation we have to tone down. We live in a sea of chemicals, we live in a sea of toxins, so we got to reduce the total toxic burden on our body. And get sugar is number one. Not protect you. Sugar will hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So, you know, what you're saying then is that if cholesterol really isn't the culprit, then there's probably a lot of people out there who have high cholesterol and have been told they're at high risk, and maybe they're not so much, right? But there's also probably people out there who, because their cholesterol levels are normal, don't know that they're at risk even though they really are. Is that right?
Exactly. You said it very well. People with low cholesterol think they're immune to heart disease, and they're not. Not. I mean, the truth is, there's a study in Italy that shows that the higher your cholesterol, the longer you live. And you see, what people don't realize is our body needs cholesterol. You know, it lubricates our skin. When the sunshine hits our skin, it activates cholesterol in the skin with vitamin D from the sunshine, or in the skin. In other words, you need that combination of sunlight and cholesterol to activate the vitamin D. And, you know, we need cholesterol for neurotransmission. We need it for our, you know, in our brain to create, you know, neurochemicals. We call them synapses in the brain. The higher your cholesterol, the more you're protected from pulmonary disease. I mean, especially infectious disease of the lung. And you've heard of MRSA, you know, methicillin-resistant staph, that too in children. Infectious disease in the GI tract, the higher your cholesterol, the more resistant you have to infectious disease. In the age, the lower your cholesterol, you know, the more you approach death. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, cholesterol, vital supplement in the body. And remember, we make our hormones from cholesterol. You know, our steroid hormones, our sex hormones. So why do we create such an evil entity, when our body needs it? It's a paradox. And that's basically the book. We showed how cholesterol is very helpful in the body.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So then why then has it become such a red herring, if you will? Why has it become such a bad thing in the media that everyone's talking about you need to lower your cholesterol and cholesterol lowering drugs and cholesterol lowering foods and such and so forth?
Well, we sort of created a new disease in America called hypercholesterolemia. So now that's high, you want to lower it, what do you need? You need drugs. or, I mean, you can lower cholesterol naturally, but maybe your liver makes it. I mean, even if you, I mean, look, the way you avoid sugars, your cholesterol will go down. There's no question. But look, if you eat 1 egg a week, which contains about, a large organic egg will contain about 275 milligrams of cholesterol. If you eat a half an egg a week or 4 or 5 eggs a week, your cholesterol is not going to budge, from the diet. I mean, that's a myth. Your cholesterol is going to remain about the same. And the problem with a lot of people is they're avoiding saturated fat. And saturated fat helps prevent, diabetes. Let me ask you a question. Which is healthier? Let's say a nice preservatives in it, or sherbet. Which is healthier?
Yeah. The natural food without preservatives.
Huh?
The natural food without any preservatives.
Well, yeah, the sherbet had preservatives. Well, the ice cream had no preservatives, and were both organic. Which would you choose?
I guess the ice cream.
Yeah, why?
Because at least I know what's in it. I mean, sherbet, what is that even made of? All kinds of artificial stuff.
Sugar. It's pure sugar, right?
Yeah.
So sugar. So, when I see this all the time, when people go out to a restaurant, they'll order sherbet thinking they're helping themselves because they're not eating fat, but they're getting an incredible insulin response. Sherbet. The healthier thing would be, would be to have a ice cream with saturated fat from dairy, and protein. Remember, there's protein in ice cream as well, and the fat and the protein sort of blunt the insulin response.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the book, The Fast Food Diet. I'd rather see people eat a half a bagel with cream cheese on it than a whole plain bagel with, let's say, jam on it, because you get an enormous insulin response when you're eating the sugary foods. If you put a little layer of organic cream cheese, you get the fat and protein that will blunt the insulin response.
Gotcha.
That's why when you have a glass of wine, cocktail, they should have a handful of nuts at the same time. Again, the fat and the protein of nuts will blunt the high sugar response from a glass of wine, or the high insulin response that you get from wine, because wine's a lot, it's sugar. It's basically sugar. So, important things to consider.
Gotcha. Well, then most people would say, though, well, if I'm going to eat like nuts or fat with every time I eat sugar, then aren't I going to end up eating more food in the first place and just gain more weight?
But you got to be selective. I mean, it's all about, what I mean? I mean, you don't want to eat handfuls and handfuls of nuts. But look, a few tablespoons of nuts, if you're having a glass of wine, is okay. That's okay. Again, it's good to watch caloric intake. But remember one thing. If you're taking in too much sugar and you don't metabolize it, because in other words, your insulin is sort of resistant, or it's not burning the sugar, or it's not metabolizing the sugar, then those excess calories that aren't burned are going to be stored as fat. So that's why, in America, we have so much overweight status, obesity, etc., is because we're eating a lot of, foods with a lot of processed sugars and a lot of hidden sugars, and people like sugar in this country. It's a fact.
It's addictive too.
Hey, look, eggs took it on the chin. Healthiest things you can eat. I mean, my breakfast this morning, I had some Ezekiel bread. I toasted it. I put a coconut spread over it, and I had sliced avocado. I used a pepper. That's a great breakfast. A lot of unsaturated fat, a lot of fiber, but, great breakfast.
Right, and it's not spiking your insulin levels and your blood sugar.
So, people don't understand that. I mean, I'd rather see people eat oatmeal or a couple of eggs for breakfast than, let's say, a bowl of granola, organic granola with, let's say, strawberry. I mean, I would rather see that, and again, because of the insulin response, with sugary foods. So we have, whenever we always want to make sure we balance with, some good quality fats and proteins to balance out the sugar.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And well, what about then? There's all these. I mean, you're not the only person saying sugar is a bad thing and inflammation is bad. I mean, that's why there's all these low carb diets, right? Where people are saying don't eat any carbs at all. And what do you think about these kind of diets? Is that the kind of diet that you would recommend?
I like the carbohydrate diet, but again, I like to avoid this. The carbohydrates, the fat, and the protein. I like to avoid the fat and the protein. I like to avoid the carbs. 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 the the white sugar, the high fructose corn syrup. You can use honey and maple syrup in small amounts, but or molasses. But I don't want you to douse those substances, those sugars on your foods. I like it as a sugar substitute, but look, fruits and vegetables all the time. But I mix hot fruits with vegetables. Here, I'll show you. I was just making something before you called.
All right, a little show and tell today.
Yeah, I mean, this is why every I don't know if you can see this, but
yeah.
like this is like a Cuisinart blender, and I got raspberries in here, blueberries, I got blackberries here, I got broccoli here, beets on top, I got ginger, I got Brussels sprouts, I got some kale in here. You can see it's a purple kale, but that's, I mean, that's, this is like 10 fruits and vegetables, some local ones with the broccoli and then the Brussels sprouts, some high ones like beets, for example. It's a sugar, but if you mix them together, then what I do is I pour coconut water in here because it's high potassium, and I think this is the greatest drink of all time because you're getting live enzymes. You're getting live enzymes and some sugars, but they're natural sugars. In the blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, and I use organic. But this is one of the healthiest things you can possibly do to optimize your health, and because you need live enzymes in the body, and if you can get in 5 to 9 fresh fruits and vegetables a day, I mean, I think that's going to prevent a lot of illnesses.
Right, and especially heart disease, right?
Oh, absolutely, and you get the fiber. People don't realize you get a lot of fiber. Again, it slows the absorption of the sugars, and you get a blunted insulin response. And that's what you really want to do. So, high fiber, like I said, the broccoli and the Brussels sprouts are high fiber in there. Even the berries have a lot of fiber. So the higher fiber, the better it is.
Awesome.
And that's a really cleansing the body as well, because fiber is fantastic for, transit time in the GI tract. You cleanse the body of toxins, and that works as well.
Awesome. Well, I mean, is that the way you've always eaten? Have you always just had a big blender full of veggies and fruits, or has that kind of changed over the years?
I've been doing that for about 5 to 7 years, maybe in the last 5 to 7 years. Used the juice, and then I used but it was a pain in the butt cleaning juices and wasting all that food, that's pulp. But when I use like a blender like this, and I mix it up with coconut water, it's still thick, but I'm getting all the fiber and all the phytonutrients. One thing that I've learned being a doctor for a few decades is raw very healthy for you, because I was able to sort of cure some of my diabetics by putting them on more raw foods, getting live enzymes. And again, once you take away the processed foods, the breads, the bagels, the pastas, the cookies, the cakes, potato cake is a high potassium, but again, it's a sugary food. Rice, okay, but again, less rice, less potatoes. And I'm more of a gluten-free guy now too because of the GMO in wheat. So I prefer people to try to do gluten-free as much as they can.
Awesome.
Sort of a non-inflammatory diet, which is the key. Stay inflammation causing food. If you do that, then you'll blunt off or you'll hold off heart disease. Because again, if we feel that inflammation is the root cause of heart, you want to eat a non-inflammatory diet.
Right, that really is the key then. Excuse me. Phone's ringing.
I have a lot of these videos on my website, heartmdinstitute.com, where I'll recommend wild migratory salmon, and we cook that in coconut oil and olive oil. I'll recommend buffalo because they're grass-fed. Lamb is a non-inflammatory food. Buffalo is because it contains omega-3. Steamed vegetables, you can't beat that, I have artichoke in there and shiitake mushrooms and this one too. I call it the fruit and veggie frap, it's all on my website, and it's easy. I mean, getting healthy or achieving optimum health is not a bad situation. It's not hard. if you have a lifestyle that suits it.
Absolutely, I agree. So, if a patient came in to see you and they were just, really worried about heart disease, because obviously it's now the #1 killer in the United States, right? Is that what you would tell them? Just eat healthier and change your diet? You wouldn't prescribe them any medications or do any other testing?
Well, I had a family history, like, somebody in the family died of a heart attack in their 40s. Yeah, I would do an aggressive blood profile to make sure they don't have any genetic weakness. Like, I would test for homocysteine, for example, high LP(a), that's a very small cholesterol particle that's very inflammatory. I would test fibrinogen, which is and C-reactive protein, which are, inflammatory. We call them cytokines in the body. But it's a lot of inherited. Sorry about that. Yeah. Hello, I'm on the radio. I'm on a show right now. Okay, bye-bye. It's going through on time, But anyway, if I find out there's a positive family history, yeah, I will, screen very carefully to make sure there's not a genetic weakness. If I do find genetic weakness, then I'll recommend lifestyle changes like a non-inflammatory. But I recommend that for anybody anyway, a non-inflammatory diet. So.
Right. So really, regardless of the testing results, it's what you can do for yourself at the end of the day is just eat a healthy diet to reduce your risk. Is that right?
Yes. It's so simple. You eat a healthy diet. You drink clean water. You get some fresh sunshine every day. You take a few supports. I'm a big believer in vitamins and minerals, especially coenzyme Q10. You practice body medicine. You do a little qigong, or meditation, and tai chi. I mean, what a Pilates class or a yoga class every day. That whenever possible. If I can get into a class, I'll do it. Or get a private lesson if it's available. And I call them my 6 pillars of healing. I walk barefoot if I can. In fact, barefoot is good. And I'm not now because I'm on a wood floor, but I can walk 6 feet and I'm grounded on slate. So, or reduce inflammation in the body. And that's what you really want to do. You want to put the fire, it's the fires of inflammation that cause illness. And it's one of my goals, I think.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's so simple that, sick in America, but you don't want to get sick. So my motto has always been prevention is easier than.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. Well, Dr. Sinatra, thank you so much for sharing some amazing information with us about prevention, and I know it's going to help thousands of people improve their health. But before you go, tell us more about your book and where people can find out more info about you and the work that you're doing.
Well, the book is The Great Cholesterol Myth, and it's going to be released very soon. Actually, now it's on. You can order it on Amazon now. Again, talk about the truth about cholesterol, and it's going to be highly controversial. I mean, I'm speaking at the American College of Nutrition on this subject. The name of my lecture is Cholesterol: Fact, Fiction, Fantasy, or Myth, and I expect to get a wave of resistance in the audience. But I can tell you, with my own clinical experience, being a cardiologist for a few decades, and doing thousands of angiograms and looking at the literature, and it's thrown under the bus, and it's not right. And if people get confused reading the book, they can always go to my website, heartmdinstitute.com, click in, and there's hundreds of pages on heart health, and because when people read them, should I take a drug, and they used to go in this way, and all of a sudden somebody comes out this way. This is a game changer, and it's going to create not confusion, but people can have questions. Sometimes going to a website that has all this information will help sort out some of the questions. That's what I'm doing, is trying to create a poorly misunderstood concept and create some clarity. If I get that, I've done a decent job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sinatra. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and Scott, everything works, so God bless, and hope to maybe do something again in the future.
Yeah, sounds great. I look forward to it. Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles. I hope you love the show today with Dr. Sinatra. I mean, he's just an incredible cardiologist who has so much experience and so much knowledge, and has really done the research and really lives the lifestyle. I mean, you get to see, he brought out his blender today with his healthy green smoothie, all those fruits and veggies in there, and this guy really walks his talk, and he's not just some guy out there trying to sell a book or trying to make more money for his patients. He's really passionate about helping people live a healthy lifestyle, reduce the risk for disease. I mean, 50% of Americans today die from heart disease. It's the #1 killer in the United States. And, this is a guy who's so passionate about turning it around and making a difference in people's health. And I'm just so proud that we were able to have him on the show. And he's just an incredible guy. And I hope you love the show. And, definitely check out his book and his website. He's got some great information for you. And remember to come join us at AuthenticHealthCoaching.com. And you can get your free copy of Dr. Candace Corson's top 5 nutrition tips. I think you're going to love that report as well. And there's a lot in there that we talk about as well about reducing inflammation. Like the fruits and vegetables, like we talked about in the interview today, and then omega-3 fats, which we briefly touched on in the interview today, and then vitamin D, of course, which Dr. Sinatra did talk about. And so you're going to love that information in that report. And looking forward to seeing you on the show next week. We have an incredible guest. You won't want to miss it. All right, see you next week.